Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, sir. Your voice is
Sir, you're audible.
fluctuating.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what I am saying that the only portion in unit number 2 is the assignment problem. Am I now audible to all of you? My voice is clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What I'm saying that the only topic is assignment. Now, what is this assignment problem all about? Quickly recall what I have discussed in unit number 2 up till here. In unit number 2, we have started our discussion by sharing with all of you about the linear programming, which is a technique of converting, a language problem, a statement into mathematical. The only thing that you have to remember is that these mathematical expressions are linear in nature. They are the linear equation. Okay. Now, what we did, we plotted them on a graph paper. And what is the solution? We are looking for the solution of the problem in hand. I have discussed that primarily the method of the solution is the two types of objectives that we need to serve. It could be a maximization or it could be a minimization, right? So any of the two objectives can be achieved, can be solved it out with the help of the problem. That is linear programming. We plot the expression on the graph paper and we solve them graphically by locating the feasible region. I hope you can easily recall. Now, once we over with linear programming by graphical method, I told you that we have two situations which we call them as spatially structured linear programming. Why do we call spatially structured? The reason is very clear that we call them as spatially structured because they solve a particular type of problem. First particular type of problem is the transportation of goods and services from source to destination. And you can easily recall the block diagram which I have discussed with all of you, where we have one side we have the origin and the other side we have the destination, and we have the nomenclature of X and C, and then we plot it, then we draw a table. So we read the question of transportation and we plot them, we draw a table. That table we need to solve. And I told you that the transportation problem is a two-phase problem, is a two-stage problem. Stage number 1, determining the initial feasible solution, and stage number 2, checking and finding out the optimal solution. For stage number 1, that is for knowing out the initial feasible solution, we have 3 methods. What are those 3 methods?
So northwest corner method,
What are
least
those three
cost
methods?
method. So northwest corner method, least cost method, and Vogel's approx method.
Vocal observation. So I have elaborated the first two method. Northwest corner, उसमें हमने क्या किया था? आपको पता है? We all know about that. Then we have least cost method. Least cost method में हमने किस तरह से क्वेश्चन को सॉल्व किया था, and how do we get the final initial feasible solution by multiplying the cost with the quantity. These two contrasting situations we have already discussed. Now once we over with the initial feasible solution, जब हम stage 1 complete कर लेते हैं तो हम stage 2 पे move करते हैं. We move from stage 1 to stage 2, that is knowing the optimal solution. And for knowing the optimal solution, I told you that we first of all check. सबसे पहले हम क्या करते हैं, हम ये check करते हैं कि is this the initial feasible solution optimal or not. That is the initial feasible solution that you have determined in phase 1. Is this the optimal solution or not? And for that purpose, we have two methods. I told you. Number 1, yes, number 1.
So stepping stone method.
Stepping stone method, and number 2 is Modi's method.
Modi's method, yes.
Now, last class, if you remember, we have discussed with you the stepping stone method.
Yes,
right?
sir.
Whereby, what is the logic? If you could, उसका क्या logic था stepping stone का?
Sir,
What do we calculate with the stepping stone?
Sir, feasibility, like जो हमने calculate किया है.
What do we calculate?
Sir, जो हम लोगों ने assigned values किए हैं, मतलब why we have left the unassigned value?
We calculate. हाँ, right. Right.
So we were going
जो सेल
anti-clockwise.
अनअसाइन थे, हाँ हाँ, जो सेल अनअसाइन थे उनकी अपॉर्चुनिटी कॉस्ट हम निकालते हैं. So we calculate the opportunity cost of unassigned cell. And from there, we would like to know, is there any cell having a positive opportunity cost? If it is so, that means our initial feasible solution is not the optimal solution. We goes on till the end until each unassigned cell obtained a negative opportunity cost. That is, we have to make sure that all unassigned cell obtained negative opportunity cost. And how do we determine the opportunity cost? We form a loop, which is nothing but it is a direction, which is nothing but it is that we move from in anti-clockwise direction, where the starting cell is what? The starting cell is the unassigned cell, and rest of all cells are, the assigned cell. तो ये मैंने आपको लास्ट टाइम पूरा करके दिखाया भी था शायद, if you recall.
Yes,
And
sir.
the most important point is that the most important point is the last table. जो last table मैंने आपको बताई थी कि what are the name of the cell, then the loop, and then the net cost, and then the opportunity cost. So we have to calculate the opportunity cost by stepping stone method, and then we would move ahead. Now, once we over with this transportation, we have another type of problem that we need to handle. And that problem is, we call them an assignment problem. The name itself gives you an idea. Assignment, that is allocation of a job, assigning a work. This is a very common problem which human resource management or the manager of the factory, they usually face. What is the problem? The problem is allocating work to the labor, to the worker. Because you have studied in your concept of management paper that a right work to the right person this is the principle. This is a principle of scientific management principle. So we have to make sure that at the first attempt, we assign the right job to the right person. We have to make sure. Now, how do we make sure? We make sure by allocating, a proper job to a worker. Again, the approach is very much similar to transportation. What is the difference? The difference is, here we don't have origin and the destination. In place of origin or the destination, we have, the worker and the job. हमारे पास क्या होता है कि आप ऐसे मान के चलिए कि जैसे आपने ट्रांसपोर्टेशन में ओरिजिन और डेस्टिनेशन लिया था, रिप्लेस ओरिजिन एंड डेस्टिनेशन with worker and the job. Now note down some important points about assignment problem. आप point number 1 note करिए about assignment problem. All of you please note down. Point number one. Assignment problems are designed when the objective is for minimization, as we have done in transportation. Remark number one is that assignment problems are designed for which type of objective function? For minimization. So what does this mean? Is it so that we cannot solve the problem of maximization? No, the answer is no. We can solve the problem of maximization, but the point is that before you apply the method, you have to convert the problem of minimization into maximization. You have to convert the problem of minimization into maximization into minimization. So wrote down the point, remark that if the problem is of maximization, convert the problem into minimization. अगर प्रॉब्लम मैक्सिमाइजेशन की है तो पहला स्टेप हम ये करेंगे कि वी हैव टू कन्वर्ट देम इनटू मिनिमाइजेशन. Can anybody out of you give me an idea how do we convert the problem of maximization into minimization? कभी मैंने डिस्कस किया आपसे ये?
नहीं सर.
Okay. So note down the point. If the problem is of maximization, if the problem is of maximization, comma, select the maximum number, select the maximum value or number from the table, and subtract all values from this number, Just 1 minute. So what I'm saying that if the problem is of maximization, select the maximum number or the value and subtract this value from all the remaining values. यानी कि जब आपके पास क्वेश्चन मैक्सिमाइजेशन का होगा तो आपके पास जो टेबल है उसमें से जो मैक्सिमम नंबर होगा वो आप आइडेंटिफाई कर लीजिए और सारे नंबर को इस नंबर में से माइनस कर दीजिए. दैट इज 1 by 1 you have to subtract all the entries of the table from this maximum number. The resultant table so obtained, that is the resultant table that is obtained, is now ready for minimization, is a table for minimization. So the table so obtained after deducting the maximum number from the rest of the number, the table that is obtained, you can use this table for minimization, that is for assignment. Now you can apply the method of assignment. So this is a very important thing. All of you please note it down. कि हालांकि although the method of assignment is designed for minimization, but if the problem is of maximization, convert the maximization into minimization by deducting the maximum value from the remaining numbers of the table. The resultant table so obtained is now ready for the minimization. That is, it is ready for used in assignment problem. Now you can use the assignment. I hope the point is clear to all of you.
Yes,
I will
sir.
show you the table. Yes, I will show you the table and the data that will make you understand it better. But just note it down. Now, remark number 3 or 4, whatever it is. Another very important thing. Recall in transportation, I told you that there is no condition of equal number of rows and columns. Even if rows and columns are not equal, you can apply the transportation. But in case of assignment, if rows and columns are unequal, you cannot apply assignment. So in other words, in assignment problem, it is necessary that rows are equal to column. ये assignment problem के लिए ये जरूरी है कि rows and column दोनों बराबर हों आपस में. There are number of rows should be equal to number of columns. So number of rows and number of columns should be equal. So the question comes, what would happen if the rows and columns are not equal? जब क्या होगा जब rows and columns बराबर ना हो? What will we do in that situation? Any idea from your side? क्या करना होगा हमें? अच्छा ये बताइए, in transportation, if demand is not equal to supply, what we did there?
So we added dummy rows and columns.
Right. So there, when rows and demand and supply was unequal, we inserted an additional row or the column depending upon the situation, and that additional row or the column is a dummy row and the dummy column. मैंने आपको दिखाया भी था what is dummy row and what is dummy column. The same logic applies here. In assignment problem, if rows and columns are not equal, you have to make them equal. अगर हमें शुरुआत में रोज एंड कॉलम बराबर नहीं दे रखी हैं, तब भी हमें रोज एंड कॉलम को बराबर करना होगा. हाउ डू वी डू? वी insert a dummy row or the dummy column depending upon the situation. And what do you mean by dummy row or the dummy column? What is dummy row and the dummy column? Which row is known as dummy row and the dummy column? Yes.
Sir, I think it is for the purpose of solving the problem. It doesn't have anything to do with the problem, but we have inserted it just to fulfill the demand, like
No,
fulfill the requirement.
that is perfectly okay. But how do you differentiate that this is a dummy row or the dummy column with the main row or the main column? आप कैसे फर्क करोगे कि this is dummy and this is not dummy? What type of entries we have to make in dummy row and the dummy column? Anybody other than Kritika and Anam? Anybody else? कैसे आप पहचानोगे कि ये डमी रो है और ये डमी कॉलम है? क्या कोई उसकी एंट्रीज कुछ खास किस्म की एंट्रीज है उसके अंदर, डमी रोज एंड डमी कॉलम में? Do we have any specific type of entries into that, or is it similar to the other rows and the column? Please try to note it down that dummy row and the dummy column are those rows and those columns having the entries of zeros only. That is, the values entered in dummy row and the dummy column are 0. That is 0, 0, 0, 0. So you have to make entries 0, 0, 0. And this 0 entry in the row and the column helps us in identifying or differentiating that this is dummy row and this is dummy column. आप देखेंगे अभी टेबल अगर आप रिकॉल करें ट्रांसपोर्टेशन की, तो और रोज एंड कॉलम में तो नंबर है, जैसे है 45, 40, 51, 67. Suppose there is a row which is having an entry 45, 40, 51 and 67. But if this is a dummy, then the values are not 45. The values are 0, 0, 0, 0. All the 4 entries are 0. So that helps us as identifying that this row and the column is a dummy row or the dummy column. So what is the purpose of dummy row and the dummy column? The purpose of the dummy row and the dummy column in case of assignment is to equal number of rows with number of columns. और ट्रांसपोर्टेशन में हमने क्या किया था? In the purpose of dummy row and the dummy column in transportation is to equalize
demand and supply.
Demand and
Sir,
But in the assignment, there is no point of demand and supply. In the assignment, we have number of rows and the number of column. और हम assignment method जब भी अप्लाई कर सकते हैं जब हमारे पास rows and column दोनों बराबर हो. That's a point.
sir,
Yes, please.
Sir, you mentioned that in case demand and supply is not equal, we'll create dummy row and dummy column according to the situation. But then shouldn't there be a number in the for the demand and supply to become equal?
No, we have a number, but not as an entry for origin and destination. We have the number only for the demand and the supply. That is, if you recall the table of transportation, क्या होता है transportation में? We have the entries in terms of cost and quantity. So for dummy row and the dummy column, there is no entry there is 0 entry for quantity and the cost. The only entry is for the demand and the supply, whichever would you like to add, and that is what you call it as the dummy row and the dummy column.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
However, in assignment problem, there is no question of any entry. All the entries are 0. Transportation में तो फिर भी entry थी demand और supply की. Assignment में there is no point of entry at all. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Now I'm just thinking of how do I share my presentation with all of you so that I can share the problem and I will start talking about the assignment. Okay. The point is that we have only one method of assignment. हमारे पास कितने मेथड है assignment के? We have only one method of assignment, and that method of assignment is known as Hungarian assignment method. Which method? Hungarian assignment method, जिसे हम शॉर्ट में HAMD कहते हैं. So I'm repeating, that for solving the assignment problem, we have only one method, and that method we call it as Hungarian assignment method, HAM. अब उसमें होता क्या है? What is that method all about? The beauty, the characteristic of any mathematical method is that it is a step-by-step procedure. कोई सा भी मेथड आप ले लीजिए मैथमेटिक्स में, अच्छी बात ये होती है कि इट इज अ स्टेप बाय स्टेप प्रोसीजर, एंड यू हैव टू फॉलो दैट स्टेप्स इन द सीक्वेंस एज मेंशन्ड. Irrespective of the nature of problem, the steps will remain the same. You have to follow the same steps. Is it a problem of HR? It is a problem of it is a problem of marketing, or it's a problem of finance. If it needs to be solved with the help of assignment problem, then it is for sure that we have to apply the step-by-step procedure. Now, what is that step-by-step procedure? That's the point of we call it a Hungarian assignment method. तो मैं थोड़ा सा ब्रीफ करता हूं आपको कि वो मेथड है क्या. What is this method all about? Dear students, the method which we are following is Hungarian assignment, and as I have discussed, it is a step-by-step procedure. It is a step-by-step procedure which needs specific steps. What is that first step? All of you note down steps of assignment method. मैं आपको steps note कराता हूँ अभी. Maybe I will get some way out of sharing my presentation with all of you. Step number 1. All of you note down step number 1. Listen carefully. Acha, before I tell you the step, one thing. Like transportation, as what you have done in transportation, assignment problem is also, very simple in nature. Now, what very simple in nature? What does this mean? This means that it does not include any mathematical formula or any theorem. So, what it includes? It includes a logic, as you have done it in transportation. जैसे transportation में क्या था, ऐसी assignment में we have a logic. The only thing that you have to understand is the logic. What is the logic here? Here, the basic is that you have to first of all check. Step number 1 is check whether the rows and the columns are equal or not. Step number 1 is check whether the rows and the column are equal or not. If equal, apply Hungarian assignment method. If equal, apply Hungarian assignment method. If not equal, तो फिर क्या करना होगा हमें? If they are not equal, then what we have to do?
Add dummy rows or columns according to
Add
the
dummy
situation.
rows in the column. Add dummy rows in the column. Right, absolutely right. Step 2.
Can you recall step 1 again? Due to some network issue, I was not able to hear it.
I'm saying step number 1 is whenever the problem of assignment is given, check the number of rows and the number of columns. Okay? If number of rows and the columns are equal, apply Hungarian assignment method. If number of rows and the columns are not equal, then add dummy row or the dummy column as per the requirement. अगर रो शॉर्ट है तो हम रो को इंसर्ट कर देंगे डमी रो को, अगर कॉलम शॉर्ट है तो हम कॉलम को इंसर्ट कर देंगे डमी कॉलम. And the entries in that row and the columns are 0, 0.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now before I tell you the step, what you need to understand is why we are doing, what are the steps. The only purpose is that we have to obtain, I would say, we have to obtain 0 value in the table. हमें किसी भी तरीके से उस टेबल के अंदर 0 वैल्यूज लानी है. अब वही मैं अभी आपसे शेयर करूंगा तो शायद आप समझ पाएंगे. जो टेबल में डेटा दे रखा है, we have to somehow make them 0. Some values we have to make them 0. How do we do so? That is what the procedure is all about. So step number 2, consider a row, that is consider the first row. Identify the smallest number in that row and subtract it from each number of the row. That is subtracted from each value of that row. मैं सिंपल लैंग्वेज में बता रहा हूं. रो नंबर 1 पहले लेंगे, उसमें से जो स्मॉलेस्ट एलिमेंट होगा, स्मॉलेस्ट एंट्री होगी, उसको आइडेंटिफाई करेंगे और उस वैल्यू को बाकी तमाम वैल्यूज में से माइनस कर दें. रिमेनिंग तमाम जितनी भी ऑल वैल्यूज हैं, वी हैव टू सब्ट्रैक्ट. आई एम सेइंग आई स्टार्ट फ्रॉम रो नंबर 1, identify the smallest number and subtract this number from all the entries in that row, including the number itself. Including the number itself. Step 4. Repeat
Step
this
3.
step.
Step 3. Sir, step
Repeat
3.
this step for all the rows. Repeat this step for all rows. Right? So select the minimum number, subtract it from all the entries in that row, and repeat this step for all rows. That is row number 1, row number 2, row number 3. Do it. Now step number 4 or 5, whatever you want. Consider a column. जब आप rows complete कर चुके, then we come to column. Consider the column. Identify the smallest number in that column. Subtract the values from this smallest number in that column. I'm repeating. Select the column, identify the minimum number, and subtract it from all the entries in that column. Repeat this step for all columns. सपोज करिए 4 कॉलम है, तो आप चारों कॉलम के अंदर एक एक करके यू हैव टू अप्लाई दिस. सो इफ सपोज वी हैव 4 कॉलम्स, वी हैव टू अप्लाई दिस मेथड ऑफ कॉलम फॉर ऑल द कॉलम्स. सो आई एम रिपीटिंग. स्टेप 1 is select the row, the first row. Select the first row, right? Identify the minimum number from that row. Subtract this number from all the numbers in that row. Whatever, it's not 0, right? Whatever is the smallest number. Generally, the entries are positive. So we don't have any reason for negative, because the data is about like time. The data is about cost. So time, cost, they are positive. So उन positive numbers में से जो भी smallest number होगा, we have to identify that number and we have to subtract it. Yes, please.
Yes, sir. My doubt was that since we'll have dummy rows and dummy columns, उसमें तो 0 value होगा, तो उससे बड़ा ही number जो next होगा ना?
नहीं, बड़ा नहीं. You have to choose the smallest. Even if it is 0,
smallest. So even if it is 0, we'll choose 0 or the number next to 0.
Even if it is 0, yes.
Then sir, फिर तो changes नहीं होंगे ना, अगर हम 0 choose करेंगे.
You are right. There will no change, but this is not for all columns. You will see that there is a possibility of some change. Okay. So पहले rows को लेंगे and then after that column. Now once you over with that, step 5, which is very important. Cut these zeros with the help of a line. Or in other words, draw cutting lines. Which will cut these zeros in one go. That is, you have to draw the line which will cut the zero in one row, in one attempt. Right? What does this mean? What type of lines I'm talking about? Now the rule for the line is that the lines are either horizontal or vertical. No diagonal cutting lines are allowed. तो अब आपको क्या करना है कि जो zeros टेबल में आए हैं, आपको उन zeros को कट करना है by drawing the line. The only point that you have to remember is that the lines are either horizontal or the vertical. Diagonal lines are not allowed. जैसे आपने transportation में देखा था, the same is here. You cannot draw horizontal line. Diagonal line. So lines can be horizontal, it can be vertical, and there is no diagonal line. Okay. And one more point that you have to remember is that the starting line is the line which will cut the zero, which will cut the maximum 0 in 1. So that is what you have to remember, that you draw the cutting lines in a way that you will cut the 0. The starting line is the line which will cut the maximum zeros in 1. तो पहली लाइन जो बनेगी वो ऐसी लाइन होगी which will cut the maximum 0. And then, we have the last steps after the cutting line. We have the last step in the cutting line. We have the last, step in is that now we have to allocate the job to the worker. Now the time is that we have to allocate the job with the worker. That I hope that I can tell you only and only when we have the diagram in front of us and like that. So what I will do, I will engage another session some other day, maybe tomorrow or not tomorrow. Tomorrow we have a scheduled class, but most likely Jamal Saab will engage tomorrow and day after tomorrow. In case if I engage, then I will complete this assignment with the help of the problem, with the help of numerical problem, and then I will tell you what exactly I mean to say, what are the steps which I have discussed here. Even if I'm not engaging in the class for Thursday or Friday, I will make sure that in this week only, I will take a class and I will complete the topic of assignment. Okay?
Okay, sir.
This is all from my side. And tomorrow, Jamal Saab will start the class and he will engage some topics with all. We'll cover some topics. Okay? But don't worry about my class. I will put a message in the group, and accordingly you will take the class. Okay.
Okay,
So that's all
thank
from
you,
my
sir.
side.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
फिराज क्लास लीव करो।
अरे कोई वो तो मांग लो सिलेबस।
सबसे पहले तो सर ही गए।
सर गए?
हमें सिलेबस चाहिए सर।
पकड़ लो सर वो किसी दिन। क्लास खत्म हो गई। लग तो ऐसा ही रहा है यार।
तो लीव क्यों नहीं कर रहे?
तुम भी करो।
तुम क्यों लीव कर रहे?
अरे यार टाइम जा रहा है, करेंगे। चलें भाई। अल्लाह हाफिज़।
क्लास खत्म हो गई?